Appreciate you speaking with me, Attorney General Schmidt, and very curious to hear your thoughts on some current events.
Well, be glad to visit.
Wonderful. Can you confirm or deny that you're possibly mulling a run for governor in 2022 against Governor Kelly?
Well, we're looking seriously at it. And as I've visited with people, I've been really very honored that so many Kansans have encouraged me to run. I'll have more to say about that once I've made a decision.
Great. And do you think Republicans could feasibly win back the governor's mansion?
I think we have a very good opportunity to return a Republican to the governor's office in Kansas in 2022, as long as we nominate a strong candidate that all of our Republicans can rally around and support. That was the trouble we ran into last time, was a divided Republican Party that Democrats were able to walk right through the middle of, and we need to not repeat that mistake.
Yeah, when people look back at that race, they kind of do see that that may have been a blip in terms of who was nominated. But do you think Republicans, kind of given that they control the state legislature, I believe it is divided government even at the top, obviously with you in the Attorney General spot, they could seize upon kind of their presidential returns, just kind of the overall fervor to Republican ideas, especially in contrast to the Biden administration? Do you think because Republicans are out of power, they could seize upon that?
I hope so, and I think so. Typically, 2 years into a new federal administration, the party that does not control the White House tends to do better in races up and down the ballot. But I really think that the 2022 governor's race in Kansas will be more focused on what's happening in Kansas with the national climate as a backdrop. And here I think that the Kelly administration has really just not performed well under pressure, both before and during the pandemic. And I think many Kansans are frustrated with that and ready for a change.
One thing that you and I think some other Republicans are trying to do is to challenge the constitutionality, or rather limit the powers, of Governor Kelly's emergency powers in wake of COVID. Could you explain more about that effort and why her power has to be limited?
The main Kansas emergency management law is called the Kansas Emergency Management Act, or the KEMA. It works very well for what I'll call ordinary disasters. And by that I mean disasters that are recurring, for which everybody is prepared and ready to deploy upon the governor's signal. A tornado that hits a town, or a flood, or wildfires. The problem is that law, with its extraordinary powers granted to a governor, was never designed to become a substitute for the ordinary democratic process of making law. And it was never designed for the sort of long-term, widespread disaster that COVID has become. Kansas has lived almost a year under a state of emergency. The governor made more law last year by declaring emergency executive orders than was enacted by the legislature, by a factor of 3. So the process by which we govern ourselves has been turned on its head in Kansas by the governor's excessive reliance on emergency powers, coupled with the real lack of legislative oversight of how those extraordinary powers are used. And so I'm a strong believer that the legislature needs to reform the Emergency Management Act this year. It needs to restore balance, along with checks and balances, on how this governor or any governor can use these really extraordinary powers.
And as a result of your attempts to limit her powers, a lot of, I think, Kansas Democrats are kind of sounding the alarm that you're perhaps very dangerous, that it's you largely behind the efforts to do this. Do you think they're worried about you potentially challenging the Kelly administration in 2020? Is that why they're largely targeting you and accusing you of doing something that is within constitutional bounds?
Well, I think Kansas Republicans need to pay close attention to how our Democrat friends are reacting to the current discussions. It's pretty clear that Kansas Democrats view me as a serious threat to their ability to reelect the Kelly administration. And they've really ramped up their criticism almost in a strange way. I was looking for a word there. Is obviously very political. And so, if our goal is to rally around the strongest candidate who can bring our party together and win in November of 2022, as Republicans figure out who the candidate is that can do that, we might want to look at our Democrat friends because it looks like they've already reached a conclusion.
Could you talk about some of the casework you're working on as Attorney General? I saw that you signed on board with other attorneys general to challenge Biden's Keystone executive order. Will other attorneys general like you, and perhaps maybe yourself, will you be leading the charge to kind of challenge Biden's executive orders as they come? Is this like a preview of kind of the work Republican attorneys general, yourself included, are planning to do?
When the Biden administration adopts initiatives that are not only bad public policy but are also illegal, I'm certainly ready to stand up and challenge them, and I know many of my Republican Attorney General colleagues are as well. We played that role during the Obama administration. We fought back against the Obama administration's overreach with Joe Biden at the president's right hand. And we won on many cases. We blocked environmental regulations that were unauthorized, illegal, overreaching, and harmful to Kansas. We blocked unilateral immigration declarations the president made without any authority in law. And I'm certain that we're ready to do that again. I've advised our people, we want to be very cautious. I think President Biden is going to overreach in many ways, and that's not speculation. He's said it. The things he promised during the campaign often go well beyond the boundaries of what the law is. And so we have to be cautious in selecting our challenges carefully and making sure we're focused on those that really matter. I think the decision by the administration to abruptly cancel the Keystone Pipeline in 24 hours, private investors who had put billions of dollars on the line in reliance upon a government promise that there was a permit, saw the rug pulled out from under them with no due process, no opportunity for hearing. And that decision has consequences that go well beyond a single pipeline, well beyond an oil supply, but affects the entire business climate in the country. Who's going to take the risk of making major investment and job-producing decisions if they have to worry the government can turn on a dime and undo what it's promised? So, yes, we're going to be very focused on those actions.
And if you were to potentially enter your hat into the ring, what would you largely focus on in terms of issues? And do you think you can get perhaps maybe disaffected independents and Democrats on board too, on board a perhaps conservative message?
I think Kansas is overall a conservative state. Kansans are common sense people. They are instinctively conservative. They tend not to be overly ideological, but instead very practical. They want to see results, and I think that's what's frustrated so many Kansans about the Kelly administration. They seem incapable of performing even the basic duties of government in an efficient and effective way. And I do think that my record in contrast is going to show that we've done that time and time again, and I think that will offer Kansans of all political stripes a clear contrast and something that I think will be appealing to them. The key challenge for Republicans is to pull together early to make sure that we keep our fire trained on winning the November election and that we're able to show Kansans that we can deliver what I think most Kansans expect, which is just good, solid, basic, common sense, conservative government that does what it does well, doesn't do too much, and allows Kansans to live their lives in freedom with opportunity. So I'm pretty optimistic that we're going to be able to get those things done.
Is there anything else you'd like to add, perhaps, that was not covered already?
No, I just appreciate your interest in taking a look at this. I think in some ways the Kelly administration was an accident of history. And I think if we give Kansans a good choice as Republicans, they're very likely to take it in 2022.
Wonderful. Thanks so much for speaking with me, Attorney General Schmidt.
Thanks for your interest. Take care, Gabriella.